Welcome back to the show. This is one of those great chance run-ins where I run into somebody at a networking event and say, hey, wait a minute, that sounds very intriguing what you do. We're going to be talking about intuition, and we all here, have heard that word before, pay attention to your intuition, but what exactly is it? Well, I don't have the answer, but my next guest does. I'm joined by Ashley Isaac-Butler, owner and founder of Saorsa Essentials. Welcome, Ashley. Great to see you again. Before we get into intuition and what it is, let's talk about Saorsa Essentials. Tell me a little bit about the story behind that.
Yes, so Saorsa Essentials, the word Saorsa is actually Gaelic for freedom.
Okay.
A nod to my Scottish heritage back on Cape Breton Island. And Saorsa Essentials came about in 2017. I first got into the entrepreneurial journey through a network marketing company.
Okay.
Worked within that with my own business for a while, and then I decided that I needed something more, and I was being called to expand that business into more of a spirituality business around energy healing, channeling, and women's circle facilitation. And so once I kind of put my ego aside and surrendered to what was, all of these spiritual gifts started to come in, and it was almost like a remembering of who I was.
Was there any particular moment in your life that you decided to look at that spiritual side of yourself?
There was, I felt like I was at a crossroads in my life,
okay.
And I knew that I wanted to change. And then once I really just gave into that and decided, then it was like the universe opened up for me, and people and situations started, arriving, and I just leaned into it. And the more I leaned into it, the more my gifts started to open up, and the more I was able to hone those gifts through my own healing journey, and then in turn use that wisdom to help and guide others now.
I think most of us think we know what intuition means, but maybe we've been wrong. I don't know, because this is what I said to you. I said I was so intrigued by you even asking that question. What is intuition? So as far as you're concerned, how do you define intuition?
So intuition is when you know something instinctively without having a conscious reasoning behind it. So it's one of those things, if you ever have this great light bulb moment that pops into your head, or if you've ever just had this gut feeling. Some people call it a gut feeling, some people call it an inner knowing. I call it an intuition. And we all have it. We all have this inner knowing, this inner guide that's with us all the time, guiding us every moment of every day.
Let's talk ego versus intuition, because that's something else that you wanted to touch on today. Why those two together?
Ego versus intuition, because society, the majority of us are living in our heads. And in our heads is where our ego, it's like the ego's playground.
Right.
And it's where we are overthinking, we're worrying, we're procrastinating, we're, making up stories of things that could happen, should happen, but might not even happen. So if you can relate to that.
Guilty as charged. And I think every single viewer watching now is guilty of that, right?
Yeah, and that's operating in an ego state mind. And then intuition is really dropping out of that mind and into the heart space and tuning in to that heart space, to that inner knowing. And so the difference between the two is when you have these thoughts in your head, your ego will always be harsh and be really like second guessing yourself, and your intuition is this calm yet steady voice. It's this reason, and that's when you know it's your inner knowing and it's not your ego running the show.
That is the best definition I have ever heard. And I definitely can see the difference between the two. You wanted to talk about some steps to connect to your intuition at any time. Walk us through some of those steps.
Yeah, so we are all intuitive beings. We all have the ability to connect into our intuition and use it. And I call it our superpower. It's a superpower that is within all of us, but there's many of us not utilizing this superpower. And so one of the ways is, first of all, acknowledging that you have an intuition. Get to know your intuition. See what they like, what they don't like. And then once you've discovered this part of you, connecting into this part of you. So finding a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. And that could be a quiet room in your house, it could be out in nature, and really connecting in and just having that intention that you're just going to connect in to see what messages or what guidance is coming through for you. And then just allow it. Just allow whatever messages come in. Don't filter them, because that's where your ego wants to come in. Your ego brain wants to filter, wants to second guess you, but don't do that. Just allow it to flow. It's also helpful if you have a journal and to write it out in a free flow writing, because that's when you're not filtering it. It's just coming in. It's just easy flowing. And then just trusting what's coming in is meant for you. And it may make sense in the moment. And sometimes your messages need a little bit of time to integrate. So it might be a few days.
For a little bit.
It has to percolate a little bit.
Just before we run out of time, we've got about 90 seconds left here. You have something called the Savvy Sisters Cacao Ceremonies coming up July 12th at Britannia Beach. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is an amazing time for to get out of your head and drop into your heart space with the beautiful plant medicine of cacao. And cacao will really do that. It'll open up your heart, it'll connect you into nature, it'll connect you with other like-minded people in a safe and nurturing space.
So it has medicinal purposes then?
It's pure plant-based medicine, and it comes right from the cocoa bean, not stripped, purely harvest.
Right.
And it's a beautiful heart opening. And so I use this in my own spiritual practice, and as do many of my clients as well.
How do people sign up? It's coming up on July the 12th. What's the best place?
Yep. My website, saorsaessentials.ca, is the best place to sign up, and there's a few tickets left for that.
Excellent. And then you have one out east as well, right?
Yes.
At some point,
yes.
so people can find out.
Yeah, so for anyone who's planning their summer holidays out east, there's also one coming up on July 30th as well.
Wonderful. I'm glad you could join us today, Ashley. Really appreciate the time. Again, Saorsaessentials.ca, that's spelled S-A-O-R-S-A, essentials.ca to find out more. And as she said, only a couple of spots left, so make sure you get in quickly. We'll be right back after this.